changing the order, Charles. I'm going first. Oh, well, I will tell you, in addition to the excitement of hearing our choir, I was so beside myself this week I could hardly stand it. Because in Ashkelon, Israel, they found a pet cemetery for dogs. And they have excavated 700 dogs, and there's at least double that number to go yet. But, here's the thing. It's not a pet cemetery. It is a healing place. And all the dogs have their paws over nicely, and they're all engraved really, like, very nice. Well done. Like somebody cared. And found out that there are over 30 additional sites in the Middle East where there are not pet cemeteries, dog healers, or healing dogs. And people would go there in those days because obviously you didn't have the kind of medical detention, hospital, stuff like that. One thing that they saw, and you see that of course with your own dog from time to time if you have one, where if there's an open wound they lick, and then it starts to heal up in most cases. Not all cases, but most. I know a lot of times if I'm coming home from pruning and I've been in some bad bushes or something like that, as many of you homeowners would too, and you have a dog, you'll come in the house and your dog will invariably find the spot that you dabbed that has a little bit of blood and lick. And we tell our kids, no, the dog carries germs. What they've found is that sometimes the saliva of the dog, of course, provides sort of like a little Band-Aid over it, and also has a little antibiotic quality to it, as does frankincense and myrrh. So anyhow, dogs in those days, in addition to being guard dogs, were also considered to be healers. And many people, of course, would go to these sites for that very reason. Interesting, in the parable, the story of Jesus, he doesn't use healing dogs, he uses guard dogs, which would have taken the place of alarm systems that we have today. Nasty guard dogs that would come and bite your head off if you went on the owner's property. Well, in that particular parable, interestingly enough, Jesus takes those rough, tough guard dogs who would normally attack somebody on your front stoop, on your property. And what do they do? They're the only ones that provide a touch of healing to Lazarus and his sores. The point Jesus makes in the parable is that there are all kinds of places and locations in which God provides the opportunities for healing and for newness of life. And whether it be through your pets or whatever, I know many of you who have pets full well know that on many occasions when you're such a miserable human being that you can barely tolerate to be around yourself, your pet always loves you. Your pet always will love you and welcome you warmly, even if you're a miserable cur yourself. Pets do some wonderful things for us in the way of healing and promoting health and God's grace as a gift. Well, to this poor guy, that is what the animals, the healing guard dog licks, tried to help him as much as it was possible to do. But in the course of Jesus telling of that parable, he then moves both of the rich man and the poor man to their death, and therefore to the meaning of their life, because after all, that is what death is it not? If you have the opportunity and the time, and you think at all about dying, you also think about the meaning of your life. You're always brought back to that again. Joe Robinson, who wrote Don't Miss Your Life, has found, at least in his research, that so many of us are living our lives this way, with this philosophy: I produce, therefore I am. Think on that. It's not I think, therefore I am. I produce, or I am busy, therefore I am. Now, with that understanding, every time you step back from whatever you consider to be productivity, you then enter your real life, where you live your life, or where you're called to live your life. That would be with fun, recreation, laughter, love, art, music, social activities, passions for hobbies, and things like that. And what he's finding in his studies is that so much of what we know as I produce, therefore I am, has replaced the realness of life. And we've created an artificial life. Sort of like being computers, only not really computers, although we treat it as if we can produce like them, like machinery. Interesting, Mark Cullen of Stanford Medical School relates a lot to professionals in the Silicon Valley area. And he's been studying and counseling them for many years, and he's finding that many execs, after they retire, in 2 days, that's not 3 days, 2 days, they are like lost souls. I produce, therefore I am. In 2 days, I have not produced. Therefore, I am, or I am not. External approval normally will not lead to the kind of joy in the spirit that Jesus would call us to when there's no room for anything but external results and productivity. Just about everything is what is called by Cullen instrumental thinking, where you're always planning to have some good positive result out of it, and it can't just be fun or for mindless purpose or anything like that, relaxation and recreation. There's got to be a purpose to it. And then when you retire or you get sick and you can't work anymore, you end up with something nagging you all of the time that Cullen calls regret. And it's called the inaction effect, where what happens, we don't often always do the kinds of things which God has built us for, which is the strengthening of relationships, the strengthening of passion in hobbies and those kinds of things, the development of friendships and relationships and those kinds of things. It's called the inaction effect. Bonnie Ware is an Australian nurse, and she wrote a book after many years of working in hospice care and other places. She talked to so many patients over the years, and I'm sure some of you probably have talked to your own relatives and friends. And the top 5 regrets that people talk about before they die are these. First of all, they say, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected me to live. And from the time we're born, there are always expectations. But at some point, there's also always the necessity of a mature time in your life when you say, no, this is who I am. This is what I believe. This is how I shall live. That was not an issue for the rich man who was in Hades, because he was born into a certain existence and way of living. And so that was a non-issue for him. He just went about his life. Now, the second one is, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. As the saying goes, no one ever kicked themselves on their deathbeds for missing a day of work. I don't know the truth of that or not. I'm sure somewhere somebody probably has. But there are times that there are things that are more valuable that we can pay attention to than just working hard and being so busy that you can't catch your breath, because when you're so busy you don't have time to inculcate and work on your relationships. And you know, we all talk about how we don't have enough friends anymore. Yeah. That's because we all work so hard. I produce, therefore I am. And we don't have time for some of the other good gifts that God has given to us. The third thing she noted was, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And I suspect that, you know, there are so many ways that we can stay connected these days, you know, through various kinds of social media. I actually, what did I do? I didn't tweet. Oh, I texted. Yeah, for the second time in my life this last week. Yeah, I was like, well, I can't say that, but I was very excited. And it was pretty neat. So I'm getting a new phone this next week, and I'm going to be not a tweeting fool, a texting fool. Yes, I will. Since so many of you, oh yeah, bone to pick real quick. So many of you text me, and when I call you because I don't text, you don't answer your stinking phone. Yeah, that. And I gotta get with it. That's okay. Well, you see now. See, we're establishing a relationship. You see how it goes? Because we have time now.
They don't text that. They don't bother them anymore. Did you know that?
Okay, so you don't bother with me because I don't text back. Well, you see, these are things you learn.
That's why you gotta get with it.
Okay, I'm trying. All right. This was a footnote, by the way, to what we're doing.
It's okay.
Yeah, but you get the idea. You know, of having relationships and working with them and developing those so that you can have yourself working through the stages of friendship, which begin just simply with eyeball, and then you work through acquaintance, you work through issues of trust, and the trust happens, and then it gets broken, and you take a few steps back, and then you do it again some more, till you maybe develop a kind of affection and care, and then the trust gets broken and you back up again and start. You're always in terms of forgiveness and reconciliation and new life in every relationship you've ever had and ever will have. That's why Jesus talks so much about it. But in this particular parable that Jesus taught, that was one of the broken places in the rich guy's life. He didn't inculcate and work with his friends, like his brothers and that poor guy. Didn't even really see him as a potential somebody. And so that's why he wanted Lazarus to go, or Abraham, and give a warning to his brothers to develop the kinds of relationships that Moses and the prophets taught about. And he chose not to do that. And the fifth one, and final one that she talks about is people regret by saying, I wish that I had let myself be happier. See, none of you are smiling. See, there's happy music. Carol, thank you. That's good. What she noted is that when you think, she uses the word happy. Christian talk uses the word joy. And joy has to do with the pleasure of that which has been given to us. Like we've all been given to each other. For better or for worse, we're all with each other. We've been given the outside world that we can enjoy so many things. And the question becomes then, do we enjoy that which has been given to us? That is one big regret that a lot of people have, missing the enjoyment. How can you enjoy things if I produce, therefore I am? It don't work so good. Well, you get the idea then of what Lazarus, or the rich man, was finding when he was in Hades. He hadn't enjoyed life and hadn't even thought about it, hadn't developed friendships or strong relationships even with his brothers, hadn't even recognized outsiders as possibilities of potential companions in faith through life. And there he is in Hades, holding the bag of what everybody else as a rich guy, this is how they had told him to live. And he was lonely and alone. And you notice even in Hades, what did he say? Send Lazarus, the slave, to give me a drink of water. That's why nobody knows how long people will be in hell. How long does it take to recognize what a mess we've been? And how many times we've dissed other people? And how many times we have done evil things, and if not evil, then unhelpful, unhealthy things. There's a time limit to hell, Hades, and it depends entirely on our being willing to come to terms through forgiveness, reconciliation, and restoration with God and then with our neighbors as to how long we're going to be visiting there. But the promise that God makes is yes, you have already been saved, you're already loved, you already are surrounded by people who are potential friends and potential companions in the faith, you already have meaning and purpose in your life, which goes beyond your job. It may include your job, but it is not your job. And you already have been offered happiness. All you got to do is look around. Next time you go home, and if you have a pet, just remember, whether your pet's a lizard, a cat, a dog, a fish, it will be happy to see you. Even if you're miserable, it'll be glad to see you. A tip-off to the grace of God in you and for you. Amen.
Amen.